Alrighty. Hey everyone, how's it going? Hello, hello. How are y'all doing? Hey, hey, hey. Happy December. Hopefully you guys are staying warm. Anyone playing tournaments coming up this winter? Like North American Open or anything like that? Maybe. Cool. It's been a while actually. I feel like I haven't taught a class. I watch a lot of these classes, but I forget the last time I taught one. Actually, it's probably been like a couple months. But yeah, today we will be taking a look at some interesting games from the Sinquefield Cup. I don't know if any of you guys follow this tournament recently, but it was a very interesting event. It started off kind of slow. I don't know if you guys saw it, but the first like two, 3 rounds, there was a lot of draws, almost all draws in the first couple rounds. They lost a player. Dudo dropped out. Yeah, which was surprising. It's always kind of a shock when it happens. But then the tournament ended up becoming very interesting because it started to affect the race to the candidates. So I don't know if you guys are following the FIDE candidates tournament for next year, but there's like 2 spots left, right? One by FIDE circuit, one by rating. And both spots were affected by the Sinquefield Cup because it counts for both. And so yeah, now every round was actually important because like when the tournament started, I think Ferrugia was leading, but then he lost some games, so he started losing points, and Wesley started leading. Now Dominguez is doing well. Now they all have like a couple of weeks to try to squeeze in a couple more rating points if they can. But suddenly got very interesting because um yeah, the race was like affected by every round in the tournament. Okay, does anyone know who won the event? I don't know how closely you guys followed the tournament. But yeah, Caruana, exactly. And he already qualified for the candidate. So it's actually kind of interesting position for him. He doesn't have to worry about like his rating or anything. He already qualified for the candidates. And so he can just focus on the tournament and he managed to win the whole thing. But yeah, the race continues for the candidate. So basically it's going to end this month. So this is the final month of the year. And then they're going to count the FIDE circuit. So FIDE circuit, it's like, they score how well you do in different tournaments. And that still very much depends because like Gukesh, he's playing London Chess Classic. So if he like wins that tournament, does really well, he can get a bunch of points and possibly qualify. Dominguez might play something, Wesley might play something. So all these players that are close, they might go play something geary possibly and see if that helps them. Also, I think World Rapid and Blitz at the very end of the year will count. That might be the last event that gives FIDE circuit points. And then they're also going to take the top rated player for the January 1st, 2024 rating list. And so that could be anyone still. That like there's still a couple tournaments that will get played, and so players can gain or lose points if they play before January 1st. So that's still very, very much up in the air. But well, basically we should know next month who gets in. So it is kind of dramatic, like number of players that could still do it. Who's in so far? Okay, I think you can Google to get the exact list, but it's Caruana, Nepo, because he's the previous challenger, Prague. Okay, Andrew's gonna help me out. Thank you. Thank you. Abasov, right, from the World Cup. So technically Magnus is qualified, but he said he's not gonna play, so it's gonna go to Abasov. Um, and then there was Vidit and Nakamura from the Grand Swiss. Yeah, and then candidates will be next April, I think, in Toronto. So it'll be very interesting. Because a couple of wild card players in there. Like it's not just the usual names anymore. But there will be Caruana, will be Naka, so and Nepo. So there will be some like classical elite players. Okay, let's take a look at some games. So I picked out a couple of interesting games I wanted to share with you guys. Also have you maybe play some solitaire chess at various points. First game here is this game between Aronian and Firouzja. Now, just show you guys the game because I liked how Levon played it up until the key moment where we'll stop at, so you guys can just see how the opening played out. But it was like this typical Nimzo Indian with b6, queen b3. Queen b3 is kind of an older line, a5, g3, but they essentially get typical position here. Seems like eventually black is going to give up the bishop here, white will take back, and then black gets the c4 square. So it's very solid, like Bogo Indian style. Queen c2 from Levon. So now he tries to develop more fluidly, but okay, he gives up some time with the queen. d1, queen e7, b3, c5, bishop b2, and Firouzja goes d5. It feels very natural so far, but Levon finds a nice way to kind of get the advantage. He goes cd. And probably actually black should just go, I think e takes d5, but then white is definitely better. You can even play like e3 here. And the point is that whenever black takes on d4, you're ready to take back with a piece and make sure that you're leaving the opponent with an isolated queen pawn. And in general, playing against the IQP is kind of pleasant, but here it's like all of white's pieces are placed nicely, right, to kind of put pressure on this one. Still, I think this is very playable for black. Firouzja takes here. And now actually maybe first question for you guys. Okay, I'll close the chat while we do the solving. We can open it up later. So white to play, how would you proceed here? Oh, sorry guys, I didn't see there was people in the waiting room. For those that just joined, it's white to play in this position. We're just looking at some interesting games from the Sinquefield Cup. The last move was bishop takes c3. Now we're thinking about move for white. Okay, last call to send the move in. I see a bunch of answers so far. Okay, so it seems like we have two options, right? We have bishop takes c3, queen takes c3. And they look about the same. In either case, white's going to have the two bishops here, the bishop pair. And in general, this dark square bishop is going to be kind of white's key piece. With queen takes c3, maybe it runs into knight takes d5 tempo. That's a little bit unpleasant. Or bishop takes c3, black goes rook c8, maybe queen b2. And that seems fine for white as well, although still knight takes d5. We'll have to figure out what to do with the bishop. So Levon finds a third move. A lot of you guys spotted, so nice job. d6, which is very nice. Because, okay, like gives the pawn, right? Uses the in-between move, hits the queen. But after queen takes d6, now black's queen is a little bit worse placed here, right? Opposite the rook. So here he follows up queen takes c3. And then, okay, key point here is that now knight d5 is met with dc, right? And this is looking very bad for black. So knight takes c3, rook takes d6, takes check. Go king f1. And yeah, black, a lot of stuff is hanging here for black. So nice little nuance. And now Firouzja, I think, is already under a little bit of pressure here because white basically just has the bishop pair for free. So queen e7, dc5, just very simple idea. It's like you're just capturing, open up the diagonal. And yeah, I like how Aronian used this advantage here. So knight e5. Actually, very interesting move. He doesn't mind the trade of bishops because he still believes in white's position here. The bishop is still very strong on this diagonal. Now, white has also ideas like knight c4 and can target black's weaknesses. So white definitely has a clear advantage. So queen b7 check, queen f3. And now if black were to take here, then you don't want to take with the pawn because then black gets the d5 square, but king takes f3. You have the option of getting the pawn to e4 if the knight ever comes to d5. And yeah, white would have just kind of a very pleasant advantage here, like rook d6, knight c4 coming, and so on. So, okay, game continues, knight e4. She gets kind of sharp here, but let's take us to the critical moment, e4, b4. And get to this position, Aronian takes on f6, rook takes f6, and he kind of transforms the advantage a little bit. So he gives up the strong bishop, but now he starts playing against black structure because Firouzja had to play kind of provocatively here to make this work. Now he has some weaknesses, and Levon is just trying to take advantage in a technical sense. Okay, knight e5, rook f8. And let's pause here. Let me give you guys a few minutes to think how white should proceed from here. You guys can let me know your answers in the private chats. Okay, so yeah, a couple of good moves suggested here, and lots of options for white. So quite a few of you suggested rook to d7, which makes sense. But if you want to play rook d7, you allow black to take on c1 and kind of deactivate your queen a little bit. Black can follow up queen b6. So if you want to do this, it's better to start with rook takes c8. This is definitely a decent option. Then if queen takes, you can at least go, I think someone suggested queen b6, which looks good. I think rook c1 is also kind of simple here, just taking the file and keeping a big advantage. You can throw an f3 here sometime soon to kick the knight. And then if rook takes c8, rook d7 here, this is kind of a better version, right? Because we're keeping our pieces more active, and black, I think, is forced, yeah, to go to some square like either queen a6 or queen b8. And continue maybe queen d4 here, and white is looking very, very active. Like there's all kinds of ideas on g7. You have the g2 square for the king, f3 is coming, and yeah, white has, you know, very, very big advantage here. So this would be the way to do it. You would want to take on c8 first, and then go for rook d7. The other way to play actually was what Levon chose, which is f3. Just kind of very just like, okay, patient, just taking the square away from black's knight and showing like the problem of, you know, when you play this kind of style, like f5 is, well, you give up a square, but then white can still take the square away from you. So black played knight f6. And now Aronian decides to take on c8. And Firouzja played queen takes c8, allowing this rook to c1. So kind of looking at the line we just discussed earlier. But question is, why did black not recapture with the rook? I think some of you already spotted white's next move here. Yeah, knight d3 here is okay, but knight d7. Knight d7, exactly. Good job. Very, very strong. This is probably Levon's plan. Rook d6 also would be a perfectly good move here, but knight d7 is very direct, hitting e-pawn and hitting the knight on f6, of course. So for key8, then black's king here is just way too open. And with heavy pieces especially, this is, in a practical sense, probably just losing every time because the king is just going to be way too weak, and white's pieces have so many ways of getting in. Also, there's like weaknesses, so white can play on both sides of the board, and yeah, this would just be absolute nightmare for black to defend. And if knight takes d7, of course, we have queen takes e6, and then rook takes, and yeah, here white has already won a pawn, but black's king is still weak because of the back rank and 7th rank, and so this is very, very bad for black, just likely losing in a couple of moves. So that's why Firouzja, okay, he played queen takes c8. Now rook c1. And he tried knight to d5. And okay, white to play, how to continue. Give you guys another minute or two here. Okay, so if you wanted to keep the queens on the board, but white's advantage there is not so obvious. Like if you move the queen, black goes queen to b8, and then has queen b6 or queen a7 check if needed, like knight d7, queen a7 check, and is kind of holding on for the moment. So Aronian just goes to the end game, I think, very straightforward way. He takes on c8, knight takes e3, and now rook drops back to c5. Just the rook finds a perfect square hitting this b pawn. If white takes this pawn, then their b pawn becomes very, very strong. And it's kind of dominating the knight, where the knight can't really harass that rook so easily. So now king f2 is coming, and all of white's pieces are just placed perfectly. So it's not like he finds some kind of nice knockout win. Doesn't win material just yet, but the pieces are extremely well placed, and he knows if he can get the king in quickly, if the knight can reroute like knight c6, knight d4, then he can win a pawn very soon. So rook b8, knight c6, rook b6, knight d4. And here, this is where things get a little bit messy, because Firouzja finds this very nice move a3 to keep the position actually quite defendable. So what should have Aronian done? He should have brought the king in a bit earlier. For example, king f2 here. Then let's say knight d5, a3. Now e4 is coming to dislodge the knight from d5. And then white keeps a very nice grip, knight c6, knight d4 coming next, and he'll put pressure all over. But Levon's decision is very understandable. He just tries to immediately win a pawn. But after a3 takes knight d5, all of a sudden it's like, not so easy now, because this one is, of course, hanging. So you can take on a3, but black takes on b4, and we end up here where white has managed to win a pawn, but it's not a very strong pawn on a3. Black's pieces are very active. And the rook is brilliant because it's like helping the knight as well, not allowing white to play e4. But it's still an extra pawn, and Levon managed to pose some problems here. So I'll take you guys through what happened. I think this was move 14. So Firouzja, he made this move on 1 second. So he was basically playing on the increment here. And actually, this is kind of an unlucky move to make. Just something like bringing the king in, king f7, king f6. And I think black is still defending. He made this move attacking the knight. Of course, seeing like, okay, if knight e3 probably takes, check, and picks up the pawn. And black should be able to defend that one. But knight b4 here is very strong for white, because now white just gets to keep healthy extra pawn. And if knight drops back to e7, then the a pawn just starts running up the board. So that's why the rook shouldn't have gone to c4. It's in like king f7, knight b4, knight e7, black can go back. And then, yeah, white isn't making any progress with this one. So rook c4, knight b4, now black is forced to trade into this endgame. And not immediately clear that white is winning this one, but it is a very nice extra pawn. And because black is expanded on the king side, it's like actually a lot of potential for white's king to get in. So just quickly run through this. Eventually, Aronian was able to win this one, basically using this b pawn as a distraction and looking for an opportunity for his king to get into the king side. So yeah, there was different ways the game could have, I think, continued around here, but basically white was able to win it from here. Black's king was just cut off from the end of it, and then eventually white had basically just enough with one extra pawn to win. Okay, let's go to the next game. I want to take you guys through. Let's copy this game in. Oh, actually, we already have it. Okay, game two. This is one of the key games between Caruana and So. In fact, Caruana, I think at this point was behind Wesley in the tournament by a half point, and definitely needed to win this game in order to try and catch up. So show you guys the opening again. This one was another Nimzo. Probably played this somewhat weird, rare line with 92 and 83. This hasn't really been popular for some time. I think black has lots of ways of dealing with it, but yeah, for So, things actually end up going a little bit wrong here. 97, 93, and yeah, now normal would be to just take on c4 here, but I guess there's something he just didn't love about this position after bishop takes c4. Can't go knight d3 check because take, and then queen a4. So like bishop c7 and queen c2, and yeah, maybe white can fight for a little edge here. But instead he goes for this move b6, which actually I want to turn these marks off because I don't like that it lists it as a mistake. One sec. Oh, here we go. I think that should fix it. No, it doesn't. Well, that's okay. I think it's in the settings somewhere. All right, white to play. How to proceed from here. Okay, let's go through some lines here. So c6, which, yeah, looks very tempting. Black's idea is to go knight e5. And how did you guys want to follow up here for those of you that wanted to play c6? Because knight e5 kind of needs to be answered here because there's like knight d3 check in the air, and black is active. If queen a4, I think black could even castle there. Yeah, it's not so obvious this is good for white. So let's say here, queen a4 castles. How would you guys want to follow up here? For draw. um, Yeah, no, it's a sharp situation. So bishop c4, black can go like a6, for example. And then this b5 is annoying. But it's kind of sharp. It's not super clear. Who is the initiative? And then white could also try f4 here. I think some of you were suggesting. And then we get something like, actually here, probably knight d3 check, I would expect. Yeah, I would think knight d3. Take, say queen takes, and if the light square bishop can get out for black, then black should be okay here. Though very unclear situation at first. But c6 knight e5, basically black is doing all right there. So what other moves does white have in this position? If c takes b6, knight takes b6. Yeah, defending the pawn, bishop b7. This pawn on c4 looks weird, but also kind of cramps white's position. And bishop c4, knight c5. I think black is basically okay there. Bishop develops to b7. And black is active. Okay, Vihan spotted the right move. Queen f3. So queen f3 here ends up being very annoying to black. Okay, why? Black goes rook b8. You don't want to go bishop a6. And now what's the difference here? Oh, sorry. You guys are right. My bad. Hold on, going back a sec. Yeah, bishop c4, knight c5. There is b4. Thought there would be some knight d3 check. Okay, so black would have to take back this way, which is less ideal, but still playable. Like rook b8, bishop b7, and so on. Okay, so queen f3, rook b8. And now what's the follow-up here for white? Okay, now white pushes c6. Knight e5. And what's the point? White's queen is under attack. Yeah, queen f4 is now actually very annoying for black to deal with. Because if knight takes c6, white can take on c4 with the queen. And now hitting this one and threatening b4. So bishop b7, b4. And black has to just give this pawn to save the bishop, like b5 takes bishop b6, something like this. And just be pawn down. What about b4? Yeah, after knight c6, if b4 takes here, maybe black can defend still with bishop d7. And then this b pawn is still going to be pretty annoying, so we have to be careful. Oh, before queen f4. I think someone was also saying after queen f4. So here, right, so c6 knight e5. So there's no time. So you have to play queen f4 and then yeah, we would have this line. Let me see if I missed anything else. Okay. So yeah, this is actually super unpleasant now for black, because if queen d6, for example, let's say defending, then you're caught in this unpleasant pin. And white can't really do this right away because bishop takes d2, but rook d1 first, and then knight e4. And yeah, this is super, super shaky for black, with everything just hanging on this diagonal. Or if queen c7, white can go bishop takes c4, and then castle, and knight b5 is coming. And yeah, again, everything is just looking terrible for black in this position. So Wesley tried bishop takes c3. So here he realized he's already in trouble. He's trying to defend, and this one kind of makes sense because he at least doesn't have to lose the pawn. Like in the other line, it was queen takes, and then b4 was trapping the bishop. So here he trades this one off and can hope to defend this position. Though again, white has this like very nice bishop on c3. But Fabi continues to play like really strong and active. Rook d1, queen e7, bishop takes c4, and black goes b5. Now, why didn't black play castles here? White to play in this position. Okay, yeah, it's important to be careful here. So one tempting idea is bishop b4, which does win the exchange, but knight takes b4, queen takes rook, knight c2 check. This could be a little bit unclear, like king e2, queen c5, and black is possibly having some counterplay. If king d2, knight takes a3, and our king is kind of open, like takes, and not exactly the most fun position to play. So much cleaner is kind of to go after the same idea. Bishop b5. Just hitting the knight and then waiting for bishop b7, trading bishop b4, and here white wins the exchange, but without any particular compensation for black. If white can just castle, then it's going to be just decisive advantage. So because black can't really castle in view of this, Wesley tried b5. Okay, white to play. How would you guys continue? Okay, so bishop e2 definitely is very logical, trying to maneuver bishop f3. Probably black has to go like e5 here to kind of deal with this. Otherwise, this is super annoying. Next move, again, if castles, you have the same issue with bishop f3 and bishop b4. Yeah, there is knight d5 here. Knight d, I think probably just take on g7. Looks like you would never want to play this position as black, and then like knight h5 coming, and castles Probably very, very nice for white, but let's say like e5, queen f3, I think white is still doing well, hitting this one and then setting up knight f5 in the future to just get the total bishop pair. And yeah, should be nice position for white. Also normal is like bishop to b3, just kind of backing the bishop up, playing to castle next, and white has a very nice advantage. Here with the c2 square covered, you do have this bishop b4, knight b4, queen b8 idea, because black doesn't have any counterplay there. So castles bishop b4, and yeah, white is, I think, doing well here. So that I think is totally reasonable, but I really like how Caruana played. It was very kind of decisive. He goes bishop takes f6. So he snaps on f6, and I think he kind of sees a couple ideas here. First one is queen takes f6. And what's the point for white? Why take and give up the bishop like that? Okay, we kind of have a choice here. We have queen d6 and queen c7, right? So which one is stronger? I'm seeing both moves suggested, which is good. Yeah, queen d6, stopping castling, because queen c7 would allow castles. Very nice move. And then take, and black would be fine because the king got out, and even if black somehow loses a pawn, the bishop is open and everything is developed. So yeah, this is the key idea Fabi spotted. It was takes and queen d6. Of course, there's a little bit more to it, but if gf6, then there's knight e4. And white's attack is just super strong here. f6 square, d6 square, everything is very weak. And so white would just be winning. So queen takes was played, queen d6. Wesley tried e5. Okay, how to continue from here? Okay, a few suggestions for 94. Which definitely leads good to a good position for white. Takes, king e7, take on f7. And the white is kind of a clean pawn up. Maybe you could take on b5 as well, but I kind of like taking this one. And definitely, yeah, white has serious advantage there, like extra pawn. But again, I like Caruana's choice. It was very, very forcing. He finds big move here. Bishop takes f7. I know a lot of you guys missed this one, but how many of you at least considered this move? Did you at least think about it? That's the first. Some of you even suggested it, which was very good. But the question is, yeah, for those of you that missed it, did you at least consider it? Aha, no. So that's okay. Good lesson. I mean, good reminder. Probably you guys, I'm sure, have heard that you should be looking at the forcing moves. Basically, whenever you have a tactical position, these are the moves you want to almost check first. Because if it wins, it could be very, very strong. So first step is to just realize that it's a possibility. Then, of course, you have to calculate and see, or try to figure out if it works, which is, let's say, the harder part of the task. You know, maybe 70-30, 30% just noticing that it's there, and then 70% calculating it out. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes the hard part is just seeing that a move exists, and then calculating it out after is not that difficult. It's just recognizing like, oh, this is an idea that could work here. Sometimes it can be hard to spot. But let's see what's going on here. So queen takes f7, of course, queen takes c6, white wins a pawn, and black is still struggling with the king. So this position would just be like pretty hopeless for black, stopping this, threatening another pawn. So real idea comes after king takes f7. How does white follow up here? Yeah, well done, everyone. Queen c7 check. Knight e7, we just take the rook. We're up in exchange. And then next move, rook d6 is coming. White is getting the piece back. And of course, we want a pawn. Black lost the castling rights. And so now white is just getting tremendous advantage. So here, of course, yeah, rook d6, and so on. So Wesley tried queen e7. It gives the piece back. At least white doesn't get the rook in with tempo. Tries to develop here, but he's down a pawn. White's king is safer, and he still has weaknesses. White has like rook d7 ideas and so on. So this was very bad. So queen takes b5. Caruana actually really like his technique. Very simple. Queen c4 check. And knight f5. Super nice move, hitting the queen. You could play rook g1 as well, but this, I think, is just very powerful shots. Queen f6. All right, how would you guys proceed here? Position obviously looks very good, but we still have to find a knockout. Okay, just a couple of good ways to play here. So on queen c7, a few of you suggesting this one. What about rook a8? How would you continue there? So queen c7, rook a8. Oh, and then rook g1. Gotcha. Rook g1, bishop f3, rook d7. Yeah, that looks good. There's a couple ways to do this one. You could start with rook g1 as well, actually, just to keep it totally simple. You do allow black this option, but you have the extra pawn. We have, again, this heavy piece endgame, and black's king is definitely a lot weaker. So this should more likely than not be a technical win for white. But yeah, to be a little bit more direct. So immediate queen c7 is good, and then looking for this rook d7 idea. In the game, white played queen c5 check first, which is kind of smart because then the king is pushed to g8. And now queen c7, rook d7, this is all coming with checks. So it's a little bit cleaner version for white. And yeah, so resigned here because rook a8, rook d7, for example, and it's just game over. But there is a couple ways. You could have started with queen c7 as well, but I like this, giving the check, forcing the king over, and then coming in and setting up this idea. So very, very nice attacking. I think it's actually a perfect game from Caruana, like every move. Starting from b6, queen f3 was just like, okay, nice find out of the opening, and then following up with rook d1 and bishop c4. And then just a very kind of direct attack with takes and queen d6. This being the key idea, but he would also have to see e5, bishop takes f7 kind of from afar in order to make this work. And seeing that black's king is just getting caught in the center. But very, very nice attacking game. Definitely one of the best games of the tournament. Okay, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this class. There's a few more interesting games from the event. In particular, Fabi's last game against Richard Rapport also is worth checking out if you guys have time. He showed some very good technique in that one too. And his game against Firouzja actually was quite complicated as well. That one was less of a technical game, more of just like very complicated tactical game. But yeah, that's going to do it for today. Let me open up the chat real quick. Thanks for joining. You guys did good. A lot of good finds. Hopefully I'll see you next time. If not, probably see you in the new year. But yeah, enjoy your winter, everyone.